So India is still nascent when it comes to the mobile app market. There's some way to go until we see significant penetration when it becomes until it becomes a market that's to really reckon with. So the one thing is that we're not seeing as many sort of apps specifically for India. So for example, if Angry Birds and Talking Tom are popular in America or Europe, those are the same games that people are playing in India. So the trend is very much similar, where it's global companies and global apps that are also being used by Indians. So the mentality of, hey, I'm an Indian developer who wants to build an app for the Indian audience. That might be then certain types of apps, let's say for example Bollywood apps or cricket apps or very sort of localized content apps. But in general, it's very much, the mobile app ecosystem is very much global, where you can build apps for any market sitting in any part of the world. So out of all revenue that's made on the App Store today, and this is global, not necessarily India only, because India the payments is an additional issue. Out of the global ad revenue, about 80% comes from in-app purchases and in-app ad revenue, and only about 20% comes from apps that are actually directly paid, which you have to actually pay for. So the recommended model is to sell your app for free and then make money inside the app by selling more content or showing ads inside the app, and other similar things. In India, of course, the problem is that payments is a bigger problem than just mobile, right? People don't commonly pay with credit cards and all those other things. So we think that over a period of time, as India becomes a bigger market, the ad-supported model will become more common over here, simply because you'll find that users are paying less, and whereas there's enough ad inventory to be bought. You're right. So folks don't, necessarily get it all the time, right? So it's a learning curve for everyone as to, okay, what's my ROI working out to? What kind of ad should I show? Should I show a basic banner ad, or should I show a full screen ad? What will people click on? Where is the ROI? So people are learning, I think, but people are not scared to experiment. Also, out of all mobile advertising spend today, 80% of the spend is basically people who are driving to app downloads. So even if it might be a brand advertiser, they are advertising their app, which they then want users to download. So they are paying what we commonly refer to as a cost per install or cost per download. So even if they pay for a click, or even if they pay for an impression, ultimately what they're backing out into is how much does it cost for me to get the user. So 80% of spend is purely going into driving mobile app downloads. And we think that's going to continue, right? As even brands and even developers start making just apps, they need avenues to market those through, and they need to get users through somewhere. So we'll think that that market is going to just increase, and in fact, more and more spend will continue to just keep going to driving downloads for apps. Think about it, right? What is local to India? So one could be language, right? So we have 24 to 18 different languages or whatever that's recognized officially, and then so many more beyond that, right? So language obviously plays a big part, where if you can build something that translates well for various languages, right? So a good example of that is an app called News Hunt, and what they do is they basically do 24 different local language newspapers. So that's a good example of something you can build for India, very Indian audience. The second thing could be local content. So by that I mean Bollywood, right? So if you can get content from the studios and either do movies or do trailers or do show times, anything around that. Third is music, of course, again similar to Bollywood, where if you get rights, you can stream live music. Then being cricket. So again, if you think about it, we're going back to the same, the ABCD, right? So Bollywood, cricket, astrology. So these are very local Indian things, which even on the internet, even in digital, even on TV, most people have only made their money through these 3 or 4 things, right? So that's again where even mobile is going to go to. So the utility apps again, so let's take the example of what utilities could do, right? So let's say if it's a flashlight app, why could a developer sitting in Armenia not build it, right? In fact, it is true that one of the biggest flashlight app is called Flashlight Free, and in fact that comes from some part of Europe that even I'm not sure what country it is. And it's clocking the most number of sessions globally in India and anywhere and everywhere else, right? So that's a good example. Other utilities, I mean, I'm trying to think of use cases that are very specific to India, right? I mean, it's a good point. So ration card, government stuff. So there's payments. So there are a couple of very interesting companies in India that are trying to solve the payments problem through apps, right? So you partner with banks, local Indian banks, to basically create a platform where you can transact much easily over the app, rather than having to swipe a credit card all the time. So that's again a very local Indian problem. So things like that. But let's take the example of location-based apps, right? So there was a huge thing around a few years back where let's create location-based apps for India, right? But the most widely used location-based app in India is Foursquare, right? So it doesn't really matter because people still use Foursquare because it's the best product, and it still does the same thing where it's locations around you. You check in, you crowdsource the names of the locations. So it still works the same way. So I think on the content side, definitely there's a lot of local possibilities on sort of the very, very local problems to solve, which could be payments, could be transport, right? Transport is a very local problem where it's not organized. Things like these, yes, you could solve. But in general, if you look at day-to-day lives or gaming or news for that matter, it's pretty much sort of global plays. Right. So absolutely right. So I mean, app discovery is the number 2 problem in the industry. Number 1 problem being user retention. So there's some science behind you'll get the users, but how do you get them back is the biggest problem. But let's focus on discovery for now, right? So discovery is obviously a very big problem, very big challenge. You build your app, it's out there, okay, then people are stumped, okay, what do I do now, right? How do I get it discovered? So the way I look at it is that, look, every marketing aspect, marketing a product rather, right? Every marketing activity has a budget behind it. So you can't just hope to put your app out there and be like, okay, it'll get discovered and people will find it, I'll get the viral effect, I'll become the next Temple Run, right? That does happen, but one in God knows a million, right? So again, taking the example of any other product in the world, let's say if tomorrow you go out and make a shirt, right? And you launch a shirt company and you start distributing it to stores. You'll need some marketing budget to promote that shirt, right? So similarly on mobile, right? You have the advantage is, yes, you've been given a distributing platform that is global and unprecedented, the app stores, right? Which is a very sort of new phenomena where the distributing platform is already there. Now, to get visibility, you still need to spend money, which includes social media marketing, SEO, mobile app advertising, which is what I talked about, right? Where most of the mobile advertising spend is going. Includes, SEO inside the app stores, making sure correct keywords, making sure screenshots, making sure description is right, the company names are visible, the app names are more intuitive. All of those things. So it's a science, right? And I truly believe that if you have the right product and if you do the science right, it's not the hardest problem. You can get it done as long as you're willing to spend money and not just sit and be like, we'll see how many downloads we get and where this goes to. But engagement is obviously the bigger piece, which is a problem. Go after where your audience is. So if your audience is Android, don't think about the fact that your competition is there or how hard it is, then build Android. So to answer your question, if you're building an India-specific local content, whatever app, it has to be Android first, right? Because most of the Indian audience, about 50 to 60% is on Android, and then iOS, Windows, and BlackBerry form the other sort of bulk piece of it. But you got to build where your audience is. Similarly, if I'm building an app for US, I'll probably go iOS first. Yes, Android is bigger, but iOS is also a significant chunk. And to answer your question in another way, another reason why personally I recommend building iOS first is because it's much easier to build. Right? For Android, it takes longer to build because there's so many devices and so many OSs. Right? So by the time you figure out testing and resolutions, it'll take so long. Right? iOS, you can get your product out much quicker. You can see what the response looks like, how people are responding to it. And then based on that, tweak things and easily at least get some initial validation and traction that your app works, and then port it to Android and go bigger. And then Windows over a period of time we think will overall get about 15% market share by 2015ish, which is when then you need to start focusing on building for Windows as well, but not right now. So I think personally, if I had to pick one ecosystem which is perfect to build out and also to sort of, it's right there, but just some work needs to be done to overall become a big hub, is the Delhi area. So the reason for that, so I'll tell you the problems with Bombay. Right? The problems with Bombay is that cost of living and real estate is very expensive. So for a startup to start out in Bombay, it costs quite a bit of money. So which means, if real estate is expensive, then overall cost of living goes up, which means what you're paying people to work for you, you're probably paying about at least 2 times the salaries that you would in other regions. If you think about Bangalore takes care of a lot of things, especially the tech talent, right? There's enough tech talent coming out, salaries are okay, rents are okay. But for some reason, whatever you call it, culturally or whatever, in Bangalore, the business instinct is not quite there, right? Whichever, like I said, maybe it's cultural, maybe it just comes with people you grow up around, but for some reason, that instinct is not there. Delhi has that business instinct. Delhi solves the cost of living problem by giving Gurgaon, and as well as because Delhi as a city itself is a lot of fun to live in. If you go into main part of mainstream Delhi, all that gets sorted out. Now the part that's missing in Delhi is the tech talent, right? I personally think that's the easier problem to solve, right? If you can convince tech folks from places like Bangalore or Pune for that matter to move to Delhi, you can gradually build that out, which is why you're seeing a lot of the e-commerce companies being built in the Delhi area and a lot of exciting startups coming out of there. So at least that's my take. I think Bombay is very capital friendly and has a lot of great business minds, but to start out is expensive. So until we solve that problem, maybe until we have our own Gurgaon at some point, we'll continue facing those problems.